I've been reading the comments about my format change and I wanted to say thank you. It's helped me realize what I need to do to make these videos better. Okay, welcome to the channel. Today's tale is Earth Declares, Titan's Edge. Captain Jake Morrison was sipping stale coffee when Titan's Edge screamed to life. The mining station had been a dull, reliable rock in the dark until Lisa Grant, the bright young science officer, flagged a strange distress signal streaming out of the dead zone. 2 hours away drifted a vessel the size of Moon's, its hull bristling with jagged spines and pulsing red light. The computer translated a single gravelly line: "You dare approach the warriors of Kether." Jake could have called Fleet Command, could have retreated. Instead he ordered docking. 6 months of small space caution wouldn't he have taught him how to turn away a sentience begging for help? The alien who boarded first was a sight meant to intimidate. 7 feet tall, layered natural armor, 4-limbed hands with too many fingers, red eyes like ember slits. Commander Zero of the Kether Empire demanded to know how such soft ones could help a warship of conquerors. Pete Collins of the station's lumpy, stubborn engineer answered with grease and blunt confidence, "We fix engines." Inside the Kether engine room the scene was worse than the wreckage outside. The core's housing was gashed with impossible fractures, metal peeled as if from within. The warriors called the cause shadow demons, or beings that slip between realities and tore ships apart from the inside. The Kether spoke of madness, of whole crews driven to self-destructs. Pete set to work anyway. Jake pinged Admiral Brennan, a diplomatic research vessel and doctor. Alan Fox, a man who always smiled like the world was uncomplicated, were en route. Sensors went from bad to apocalyptic. 6 dark shapes folded into normal space around the station, moving faster than light and slower than thought. The bridge lights bled strange colors. The air felt thick, and the first contact wasn't a blast of weapons so much as an invasion of the mind. Crews convulsed with images not their own, abysses of cosmic hunger, loneliness so absolute it shredded wool. Kether warriors, conquerors who never fled or dropped to their knees, weapons clattering from numb hands. The shadow shapes licked at the hull, and where they touched, metal grew soft and organic, crawling with wrongness. Then the research vessel arrived, calm as a doctor entering a ward. Doctor Fox peered through the nightmare without flinching. Where everyone else saw demons, he saw colors. He called them ethereals, not destroyers, and from his tone it was suddenly possible to believe him. He came aboard with small cases and quiet machinery, consciousness buffers, and alien etiquette in a toolbox. While Kether soldiers trembled, Fox hooked his devices to a battered console and did something that looked like sorcery. He tuned the ethereal's brutal, direct way of reaching minds into a handshake. The revelation arrived like daylight. The beings that had looked like living shadows were explorers who communicate by sharing consciousness. When one of them, Whisper of Distant Suns, eased its presence through Fox's machines, it felt less like an attack and more like a clumsy, overwhelming hello. The visions that once shattered minds became, through the buffer, a patient, curious voice. "We have waited to speak with you." The Kether realized, with a mix of horror and shame, that they had been shooting at diplomats for decades. There were 6 of them, the ethereals, each more vast and incomprehensible than the last. Their forms had no edges, no surfaces, just angles of awareness that shifted and flickered in a way that made it hard to tell where one began and the next ended. And yet there was a unity to them, a gestalt that resonated with a power that was almost physical. And from this kaleidoscope of alien, one clear impression radiated: "We mean you no harm." They had come across the void and claimed the Kether ship because they believed it to be empty. But they would have killed any crew foolish enough to stay aboard. And their intent had been simple: reach out and speak. "We call across the foldings," said the creature called Whisper of Distant Suns, and the other names, the other voices harmonized behind the sound. "We call across the foldings and answer those who call back." The Kether had been listening for generations, but they had heard the wrong song. And now the cost of that mistake echoed around them in the cold vacuum of space. "We bring greetings," said the lead ethereal. "Are you open to the exchange?" The question hung in the air, vast and terrible and achingly hopeful. There was a long silence while the gravity of the situation sank in. On the bridge, Jake fought the urge to tear his eyes away from the sight of the ethereals gathered in the center of the room. It was the same instinctive reaction he'd had as a recruit on his first day of training when he'd seen the new recruits get acquainted with the void for the first time. Some reactions were universal, he supposed. But he wasn't a recruit anymore. And unlike the frightened, wide-eyed faces around him, he knew better than to cower. So, he met the ethereal's gaze and said, yes. The meeting took place in the station's medbay. It was the closest thing to a neutral space Titan's edge had, and it was small enough to keep the ethereals from feeling cramped. In the center of the room, the 6 creatures formed a loose circle around a console where Dr. Fox and a few Kether medics fussed over their instruments. There were risks in this, of course, risks that none of them fully understood. But the potential reward was worth it. If things went well, this meeting could reshape the future of humanity and the ethereals' understanding of the universe. Fox ran a quick scan of the ethereals, making sure they were stable. If you don't mind, he asked, I'll put up a psychic firewall to keep the rest of the station out. We wouldn't want any surprises, would we? The ethereals agreed, and in an instant, the room went silent. The most immediate problem was communication. Although the ethereals had reached out telepathically to make first contact, it was a dangerous and exhausting process for them. To truly share consciousness was a vulnerable act, something they only did with their own kind. I think we need to use some sort of intermediary, Fox said, frowning at his instruments. Something to translate our thoughts for you. The ethereal known as Whisper of Distant Suns stepped forward. We are skilled in the reading and reshaping of minds, it said. Your thoughts can fold in upon themselves and become echoes. Ours are strung like beads upon a cord. The ethereal's expression shifted uncomfortably, and Jake understood that for all their power, they weren't comfortable bearing their souls to strangers. Can you teach us to do that? To shape our thoughts into something that's easier for you to hear, Fox asked. Not easily. Your minds are swift and skittering, full of whispers that dart and turn. But perhaps, the ethereals focused their awareness on the task, and for a moment, their forms sharpened. The corners of their awareness solidified into something closer to human. The image faded, leaving Fox staring at a swirling mass of emotions. This is Whisper of Distant Suns, the lead ethereal said gently. He shows you trust and peace. What do you show him? Fox smiled slowly, a hint of triumph in his eyes. Curiosity and openness, and just like that, they were friends. Not exactly, not yet. But they were on their way. The days that followed were a crash course in diplomacy, engineering and shared consciousness. Dr. Fox proved to be an apt student, and soon he was able to guide the conversation between the two species. Under his patient direction, the ethereals learned to smooth the edges of their thoughts, and the humans adapted their speech to make it easier to hear. The ethereals also offered their aid, sending tendrils of their awareness into the damaged ship to guide the mechanics repairing it. Slowly, carefully, a bridge was built. But the ethereals didn't just observe the humans. They explored everything, eager to understand this curious species that dwelt in bodies of meat and bone, had passions and fears and aspiration. Jake found himself answering a lot of questions about humanity, about love and grief and hope. The ethereals were fascinated by the spectrum of human emotions. Do you ever wish, Whisper of Distant Suns had asked him one day, tilting his head, to be free of these sensations that tie you to your physical forms, that make you mortal? Jake had stared back at him for a moment, unsure how to answer. Mortality was a fact of life, yes, but it was also what gave life meaning. Death set boundaries. It forced choices. It made every moment precious. He had loved people who had died. He had grieved. But he had also remembered them and honored them by living his life to the fullest. It was a gift to remember, he had told the ethereals, and maybe that was all the explanation they needed. After a week of uneasy talks, the situation began to shift. A tentative accord was reached. The Kether pledged to treat the ethereals as honored guests and allies rather than invaders. The Ethereals promised to reveal the secrets of the dimensional rifts they navigated, technology that could change the course of human history. As the Accord took shape, Jake watched the humans and Kether working side by side with the Ethereals, and he saw something beautiful. The galaxy, he realized, was changing. The Ethereals weren't just visitors, they were part of humanity's future.